So hello and welcome to Handmade Oxford Online, the interactive virtual craft fair, which takes place from Wednesday the 15th to Sunday the 19th of September. Handmade Oxford Online is a great way to interact with all of our exhibitors and our host speakers. So this afternoon, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Mallon Linen, and they are Helen and Charlie Mallon. So today we're going to be running through their topic from field to fabric. Now, they've just harvested their 3 acres of flax from their farm in County Tyrone, and Helen and Charlie will explain their full process of taking flax from the field through to linen, including a live demonstration of the fibre extraction. Now, they're going to be discussing the decline of what was once a thriving industry and the importance of restarting it in a new and sustainable way. And they're going to be sharing their highs and their lows of their journey. So please do, join me in welcoming both Charlie and Helen. So welcome to you this afternoon, to you both.
Alice, thank you so much for having us and giving us the time slot, and thanks to the whole team at Handmade in Britain for involving us in this great event. I wish we could be in Oxford, but this is great to be joining from County Tyrone. So we're going to try and explain the full process, right from how you go from planting seeds in the field right through to woven fabric at the end. Now, I'm sitting comfortably in my office. I'm in a little village called Moneymore. Charlie is over at the mill, which is on our farm, which is just outside Cookstown on the way to Pomeroy. Now, I have great broadband here, so hopefully the signal is loud and clear. Charlie, who's up at the mill, we're dealing with rural broadband there. In fact, we don't have any broadband at the farm at all, so we're operating off mobile broadband. So we're fingers crossed that we'll be able to keep the signal going, but that's why we're broadcasting to you from 2 different venues. And the idea is that Charlie will actually be up there processing some flax, so you'll see him working away throughout the workshop, but I'm hoping we'll get signal so that Charlie can say hello at least. See.
Hello.
Do you want to introduce Claire as well? Who's there? She's part of the team.
Claire's Helen's sister, and she's doing the photography.
Hello. So Claire's the one behind the camera, doing the fine camera work, and Charlie is going to work away. And I'll come in the explanation to what Charlie's actually working on at the minute, and we'll see how much he can get done during a 45-minute. Yeah, it's a challenge, Charlie, during a 45-minute workshop. So let's start at the very beginning and look at sowing the seed. And we actually start about a month before we're going to plant the seed by preparing the field, and that means we do a light plough and some rotivation. You don't need to get the soil to a really fine tilth or anything like that, and then we're sowing the seed. The reason for doing that is actually that it allows you to the weeds get up a little bit before you're sowing, and then you go over the weeds when you plant the seeds, and that knocks them back and allows the flax to get ahead of the weeds before they come up, which saves a lot of time when it comes to weeding later on. Now, there's lots of ways that you can sow the flax seeds. We use 2 varieties, one called Lisette and one called Avian. They're both really good varieties and grow really nice and tall. And we use a method called broadcasting, and you can see here, this is my father and Charlie with an old vintage fiddle, and we'll have a little video here that will show you how that works. So you walk down the field and you just operate it like a fiddle, and the seed gets broadcast. You could seed drill, or you could use a little roller to plant it in lines, but we find for 3 acres the broadcasting works really well, and there's a whole science behind, the seed rate and how much you put on, which I might come back to later. So that's it. You sow the seed, you give it a little light harrow over the top to get it bedded in. You hope the birds don't take too much, and you basically then wait. It's very much what we call a leave alone crop, which is fantastic. You don't have to do very much to it at all. We just hope the weather stays in our favor. We don't apply any fertilizer. We don't apply any pesticide, herbicide, anything like that at all. It doesn't need it. It actually really likes poor ground. If you plant flax on ground that's very nutrient rich, it can grow far too tall too quickly, and then it falls over and lodges. It takes about 100 days for a flax crop to get to the point of harvesting, and around day 60 or so, you will start to see these beautiful blue flowers emerge on the flax. And the flowers are really, I mean, the first year we planted, we came out one day and saw this field full of beautiful blue flowers, and we were so delighted. And then when we went back up to see them again in the evening, the flowers had all disappeared, and we couldn't understand that they'd just been there in the morning and then disappeared completely in the evening. But that's the way it works. Each flower lasts just for about 12 hours. And this year we found, because it was really hot weather when it was flowering, it actually appeared and then disappeared by lunchtime. So it flowered really, really quickly this year. But the next day, you know, they disappear by the evening, and then the next day there'll be more, and the next day there'll be more. And it usually, the whole crop will flower over a 2 to 3 week period. And it's beautiful. I'll show you a photo here of the full crop that we had this year. This is 3 acres. And you can see why people used to talk about, you know, it looked like the sky had fallen across the countryside, because it very much does reflect the blue of the sky. It's a really beautiful crop in terms of biodiversity. It's great for bees. It'll be full of bees, other pollinators, butterflies, and it's great for birds as well, in particular linnets, which are named for flax. So really beautiful crop to grow, really easy crop to grow. We're not great farmers, but flax is something even we can grow. So it was a lovely crop this year. The challenge then is to get from 3 acres of lovely tall flax to actually getting it bundled up and harvested and out of the field. And I mean, this is our 4th year now of growing flax. That's by far our most challenging time of the year. There's so many things you have to work out. You have to know when to go in. You have to know, be able to harvest it as quickly as you can. You have to make sure that it doesn't, that it dries out well and doesn't go into storage wet, because that will ruin it. And you know, every year that we've done this, we've made mistakes, and every year we're learning more and more as we go. So the challenge is the harvest. Now, the timing of it is important. We are supposed to harvest just when it's about 2/3 yellow. You can see the way the stalks at the bottom there are just starting to yellow. And when it's yellow 2/3 of the way up and the seed pods have all formed and the flowers have disappeared, that's the time that you go into harvest, and you want to get it all in as quickly as possible then. But you'll see there's still some flowers on this. And the reason for that is we had some really bad weather at the end of the year this year. So big chunks of the crop fell down in the rain. The rain just battered it. Rain and wind just battered it. So there was about 25% of the crop was on the ground. And once it goes down on the ground, the danger is it will start to rot. So you need to get it out as quickly as you can. So we went in and lifted that flax, still quite green. But a lot of the old books that we've read tell us that some of the best flax was actually pulled quite green. So as long as the seed heads have formed, it's still worth pulling and should still process into quite nice fine fibre. So that's why we were pulling it a little bit early this year. So we always have helpers. It's a big community effort. You'll see on the ground here some flax that's fallen. That's what we're talking about, the flax that had lodged. So we put the call out for help really at that stage, because we needed to go in about 2 weeks before we were expecting. And this is Duncan Neal, who's been a huge help to us in sowing the seeds and right throughout the whole harvest. And Herman Bauer, who is from Flax Mill Textiles. And, you know, we've just discovered, since we've started growing flax, this whole community of people who, you know, are keen to see this happen, because flax hasn't been grown in Northern Ireland for 40 years at least. So there's a lot of people very keen to see it being revived, and we've had huge help and huge support. So I've got a little video here of Charlie, who's going to do a little demonstration. The sound quality on this isn't good, so I'm gonna just talk over it, but he'll do a little demonstration here of actually how you pull the flax. We don't cut it. It has to be pulled up by the root. The reason for that is that the fibre starts to degrade as soon as you cut it. So we pull it up, and it also means you're getting the best part of the fibre, or a really good part of the fibre, which is in the root. So you pull up a bundle like this, going as quick as you can, taking nice big bunches. You have to keep it all pointing the one way. You want all the seeds at the top and the roots at the bottom. You can take out any weeds at that stage just to keep the bundles tidy, and you want it all the sort of same length as well, so try and get it even. The reason for all of that is just for ease of handling later on. Really, if you've got these really big untidy bunches, it becomes, you know, really messy and difficult to handle. So you tie it up. That's probably quite a small bunch. We would that'll dry really quickly. And sometimes we'll just hang them on the fences. We've got barbed wire fences all around the farm, because the next thing we want to do is get it dried before we take it in. So Charlie's going to demonstrate here as well how to actually make a stook. What the bundle that he has there, we would call a beat. That's what the old farmers would have called a beat. And they're turning it round and just widening out the bottom and setting it round each other so it becomes a stook. And they would have put maybe 12 or 13 beats together to make a stook. And what we're doing here is really we just need to get the wind blowing through it to get it dried. It doesn't even matter that much if it, you know, gets rained on and so on, but we need the wind going through to get it dried. So that's the stooks forming. And I mean, I'd say we probably had about 3,000 at least beats of flax coming out of the field this year. So you can see there was quite a lot to handle there. So that is, I just want to show you a little time lapse of the field, which we took just with a little wildlife camera this year. Sorry, it's a little flickery, but you can see that the green is just starting to come. If you look up the field, you can see the flax just starting to grow there, through its 100 days. The weeds are also growing up around the camera. And you'll see the flowers start to come shortly, and they come and go and come and go. Over a period of a couple of weeks. You can see them sort of flickering in and out there, the flowers on the crop. You'll also notice now in the top right hand corner of the picture, you'll see that that's where a lot of the crop had fallen in the rain. So we were going in and lifting that. You'll see now a gazebo or two has popped up on the field. So we've got people in harvesting, and we were really lucky that loads of people came to help. And you can see the harvest making its way up the field there, and sticks of flax being formed, hung out all over the place. And I mean, it's good crack. We you know, enjoy this part of the year. It's intense, but you know, we have so many friends and family that come and help out, and we sit and we, you know, eat together in the field. And, you know, it's good fun. We even camped out this year. You can see one of our stooks very slowly falling over in this time lapse over a period of 2 or 3 days there. So, and that's the field cleared. The flax is all in now. It's in behind Charlie in the middle there. You can see it all stuck up against the wall, getting ready to process further. We also, those aren't our sheep, those are some neighbours' sheep that broke into the field after we had left. So that gives you an idea of the sort of process. So the next stage, once we have it all harvested, we then dry it and take the seeds off. What a lot of other people do, and what would be widespread across Northern Europe, is that you would leave it out in the field. You wouldn't gather it in, you would leave it out in the field to do what's called dew retting. And dew retting, it's basically breaking down the outer core and the inner core. Flax is a bast fibre, which means you've got an inner core, then a ring of flax around it, and then an outer core around that. That's all bound together with pectin, and through the retting process you want to break the pectin down. That will happen with the sort of bacteria that builds up when you leave it out in the field, and all the microbes and fungi and so on that work on it. So when you lay it out in the field to dew ret, that will happen, and it leaves it easier to process later, so it'll make it easier to get that inner and outer core off and get the fibre extracted from it. We don't do that. What we do is dry it fully before we bring it in. We will then ripple it, and this is us putting it through combs to take the seed off. We can use the seed for lots of other things. Traditionally in Ireland, they often didn't do that. They didn't keep the seed, but it's so useful. You can make polish out of it, you can make oil out of it. It's good feed. You can eat it. It's a good product, so it's too valuable to us. You can replant it obviously as well. It's too valuable for us to throw it away. So we'll dry the flax, take it in, take the seeds off it, and then we will ret it in a tank, and that's more controllable for us. We can take our time and do it when it suits us. We're not so dependent on the weather, although you don't want it to be too cold. And so this is a big old stainless steel vat that came out of a cheese factory. We pack the flax in there. We fill it up with rainwater. You couldn't use mains water for this. You need the rainwater to have all the good stuff in there that will start the retting process. So we take water off the roofs of our buildings and off the lane, and we fill up the tank using that. And the trick is knowing when to take it out, knowing when it is properly retted and ready to go to the next stage, because you'll see this is Charlie testing some dried flax to see if it's retted, and what he's doing is just by hand crunching it up to see if the fibre comes out easily, and in that piece that he's got there, it's coming out beautifully. So we know that that's fully retted and ready to go to the next stage. The danger is if you over ret it, you can lose the whole crop, because if you over ret it, it'll just break apart, and it's not really any good for textile after that. So you need to know exactly when. If you under ret it, it's okay. You can ret it again, and actually double retting, it produces quite good fibre, and that's something that we've done this year, because we'd under ret it, we ret it again, and it came out even better. Then you lay it all out in the field again to dry. So we're a fair way into the process at this stage. So I'll just show you a little video. This is actually what Charlie's working on at the minute. He's breaking, and we'll check in with him and see how he's getting on shortly. But this now is a really old way of doing it, and this breaker is actually a couple of 100 years old. It came from Germany and has been lent to us by Herman. And really all you're doing here is just crunching it up so all of that sort of stiff inner and outer core comes off and leaves the fibre, and you can see the chaff falling on the ground there. So that's the breaking process. That's it being done by hand. We'll show you shortly a more a speedier way of doing it, but that's the sort of old school method of doing it. But we'll just stop there and maybe check in with Charlie and see how he's getting on. Charlie, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Just tell us a wee bit about how you're going there.
Oh, slowly. It's taking a bit of time now, and I'm starting to push fire.
You've got the pressure on you. So how much have you managed to do there in the time that I've been chatting?
About half a bundle.
About half a bundle. Okay. Very good. And
A beat, half a beat.
half a beat. So it is quite a time-consuming.
It's a time-consuming job.
Process, as you can see. Sorry, could you just explain what you're doing with the paddle there?
Oh, well, after do a bit of dragging on this here, I'm just knocking the chaff off here, you know. So just gets rid of a bit more of the dirt.
Okay.
So it does.
And is that coming out fairly nice and clean? Is it well enough ratted?
Yeah, that stuff's coming out very nice. So it is. Wee bit of chaff and stuff in the centre, like, but I'm giving it a bit of a comb, a bit of a hackle, and that will take out a lot of it.
Okay, excellent. Well, that brings us very neatly to the next little video of you doing some heckling, which I'll move on to now. I'll let you get back to it. So that we'll let Charlie get on with his processing there and see how much he gets done before the end. Now, he mentioned there heckling or hackling. I hear people talking about both words, heckling and hackling. I'm not sure which is correct. Maybe one's an Irish one and one isn't. I'm not sure, but Charlie will explain it.
So this is hackling. Pretty soon, just basically combing the fibre. So comb the fibre, it'll take out the dirt and the chaff, and
oh, sorry.
what it is you'll start off with the large combs, and then you'll go over to a finer comb, and that'll take out more, and then go to a finer comb again, which I don't have. But this stuff here, which is the chaff, will be then used for doing basically fiberglass work or composites for that, body panels and stuff like that, you know. As you can see, you can end up with the right bit of it.
So you can see why where the term flaxen hair comes from. I think when you look at that, it's super soft at that stage when it's been well combed, and it's generally has some really nice colors through it. It depends on the flax. Sometimes it comes out with nice green tones in it. If it's been well retted and well ripened flax that's been well retted, it'll have that lovely golden color in it, which is really beautiful. Now, you might have spotted that so far we've been working on these sort of hand tools that would be the sort of traditional way of working, going back hundreds of years. But there's a piece of kit in the background there. You'll have noticed in the mill there a whole other piece of machinery, and that's really the sort of slightly more industrial version of what Charlie's showing you so far. So that's a Mackey's scutching machine, and Mackey's would have been, one of the biggest names in linen production all over the world. They were based in Belfast, and one of the biggest employers in the country, and they produced all of these amazing pieces of machinery for the processing of flax, from flax pullers to these scutching turbines and spinning equipment and really right through the whole process. So Mackey's are a really big name here in Northern Ireland, and their equipment is still used to this day all over the world. And actually it's an interesting thing to look at the number of patents that were held by Mackey's and are still held by Mackey's, because they were the inventors and the innovators in the industry. They were the ones that were driving things on and pushing the industrialization of linen production. So this was an ad that we found for the scutching machine, as you can see, from 1941. So it was a Belgian design, but produced by Mackey's in Belfast. Now, I'll tell you now, when we started this whole process 4 years ago, we were really naive about it and hadn't a clue that there wasn't the supply chain there in terms of actually processing the flax once we got it grown. We didn't realize that there was nobody there to ret stuff, there was nobody there to scotch stuff, there was nobody there to even spin stuff. Luckily, we still have some weavers, but all of those were big gaps in the supply chain. And I don't know now, maybe if we had known that at the time, we mightn't have planted, but it's too late after you plant it and you sort of fall in love with it as a crop and as a process. And we've had, we can't not do it now. So we were really lucky that we found this scutching turbine in an old barn nearby. And you know what, there's pieces of equipment lying in old disused mills and derelict buildings and barns and sheds, I'm sure, all over the country. But Charlie will do a little demonstration now in this video of how the scutching turbine will work.
So we take a bundle of flax and we untie. This is one I prepared earlier. So you can give a wee tap to straighten the bases, and then you spread it out and feed it into this belt, which will then catch it and draw it through into the breaker. The breaker is a set of cogs that crimps the flax and draws it, and the belt draws it through that into a decider. The decider spins around, draws all the seeds off, and they fall down onto a vibrating plate, which vibrates it down into the ground floor, basically, of the building. This belt here then grabs the flax and draws it through into a second breaker, and this second breaker then breaks the other half. The belt continues to draw it on down into a turbine. The turbine has got two large spinning blades, lady things, and they will spin round at about 300 RPM, which will knock off the chaff on one half of the fibre or flax. It'll then continue on down to a central point, which will transfer from one belt onto a second belt, and it'll draw the fibre through the second turbine, which will then knock off the chaff and bring it on out to give us a finished product. And the finished product is basically the fibre that we're looking at, which will be then sent to a hackler and then spinner.
So as you can see, that's about 3 or 4 of those processes. It'll ripple the seeds off, it'll break it, it'll scutch it, and out the other end, it's similar to what Charlie has produced there by hand, but we should be able to produce more like, you know, we should be able to put our whole crop through that in a day or two. So it'll massively speed up the process. And just, you know, just to show you what a hero Charlie is. I mean, it was lying in on the right hand side is a flax puller, which he's also restoring, but the scutching turbine came in a similar state of disrepair, and Charlie has heroically not only put the whole machine together, but has over the last year built the entire mill that you're looking at him working in now. So he's done that pretty much himself, with me helping the odd time, and my dad's on site there too, as you can see. So it's been a massive effort, but it's all actually wired up with new motors now, and ready to go. So we're just, the electrician was supposed to be here last week. Unfortunately, he has COVID, so he's all right, and will be coming next week, but that has just stalled things a little bit. So that's the plan, is to get that machine restored. It's all working, it's all moving, and then we are into spinning is the next stage of the process. And you can see here, this is a really expert spinner, Sarah Jardine, who is, that's our flax there that she's spinning, that Charlie has scotched, and she's working it through. So we were very excited to get our first little sample of yarn through from Sarah and another friend, Tiernan, who have been processing it for us. So we were delighted with that, and it seems to be good quality, and it seems to spin really well. So we're at that stage, and the next bit then will be to look at weaving. Now, both of those processes, both the spinning and the weaving, and I guess everything we've talked about today, can be done by hand or can be done at a more industrial scale. We're working on getting the spinning back at a more commercial scale, and we'd always want to do some hand spun, but it would be nice to be able to do some machine spun as well, and that seems to be happening now. And the same with the weaving. I mean, we're really lucky in Northern Ireland to still have good weavers. This is Marion Bauer, Herman's wife, and she is a master weaver and does beautiful work. So she will be weaving our fabric, and then we also have the option of machine woven as well. So we should, you know, end up with either this, which is hand spun and hand woven, and then we have the option for machine done as well. So that's the process start to finish. I think there are about 13 stages in there. I hope I've left a little bit of time for some questions. I can see that some have come in there. I'll stop sharing so we can get a look and see what Charlie's done as well. So Alice, I don't know if you have any questions lined up for me.
Yes, it's been really well. First of all, I should say thank you very much, you know, for going through that process. I know for one, I'm taking away a real understanding of, you know, of all the different stages, but also the time and the hard work that really goes into it. So thank you so much, you know, for first of all. We do have some questions, and please do, you know, pop onto the chat or the question and answer box now. The first one really is, you know, what type of variety of flax, you know, are you using?
The varieties that we use, we imported about 3 years ago from the Netherlands, and it's one called Lisette, L-I-S-E-T-T-E, and another one called Avian, A-V-I-A-N. They're both organic, and super varieties, I must say. They've grown really, really well for us. I should confess that the first year that we planted flax, we planted entirely the wrong variety, because you plant a different variety for seed than you would for fibre. The fibre varieties grow really tall and will have a small number of seed heads on them, whereas the seed varieties will grow much shorter and have a lot more seed on it. So we made the mistake in the first year of just ordering flaxseed and planting that without really knowing that it was a fibre variety. So the choice of variety is quite important. I hope that answers the question. Lisette and Avian.
No, it does. Thank you. I mean, kind of taking back to one of our earlier questions. We've had to somebody said, that it's wonderful to see the hackling process, and they're amazed to see how much of the shorter toe fiber is actually combed out. Does it ever surprise you, kind of what you're left with, and kind of things that happen along the way when you start to work with the fibers?
That's a really good question. Yeah, you do. I mean, at each stage, you're losing some bits, and the weight goes down. I'll just show you a great slide though, which kind of explains this a little bit. That is a really good diagram, which I did a lot of research at the start about, what sort of, just trying to look at what sort of yield we might get. And I got a lot of good information off the internet and from various different linen companies. But you can see that almost in fact, I think every bit of the process, you can use it in some way. So the toe that we talked about there, the sort of shorter bits of fiber, I mean, that can still be spun. And it'll be, a different type of yarn, a different type of fabric, but it can still be used for all kinds of things, for rope and for twine and for those kind of things. And equally the chaff, as Charlie was talking about, or here we would call it shows. The older guys would call it shows, and that makes great like animal bedding and things like that. And we're really interested now. We've been working with the Natural Fibre Composites collaborative group here in Northern Ireland, and we're looking at using flax fibre, that sort of tow, and even the chaff with bioresins and so on to make different composite materials. So it can be used to replace plastics. It can be used as a fully biodegradable and natural product. So I think there's so much more we can do with it as well. Sorry, Alice, when you ask me a question, I do tend to get carried away with it. Sorry.
No, it's great because it actually brings us by kind of using the material in terms of, how much fiber, could you spin from a couple of bundles?
That's another really good question, and it's something we only sort of found out recently. Charlie, we had sent some scutched fibre, which I think was from maybe about 2 sort of fairly sizable beats of flax that we sent up to a spinner, and he was able with that to spin 450 meters of yarn. Now that sounds like a lot, but actually when you turn that into fabric or into material, it doesn't go that far, but about 450 meters from a couple of beats.
And kind of talking about kind of the yarn, do you have any linen thread to sell at this point?
Not today, but the spinners are working away for us at the minute, and we would hope that by the time we join you in Chelsea in November, that we will have some to sell at that point. So it's imminent.
Oh no, I for one are very excited. So what's been really nice actually is taking it more towards the start of your presentation. If I may, that we saw that community plays, a really big role in supporting you achieve, harvesting. How important is for you and the community, as you mentioned, Flax was coming into, of sharing skills and sharing knowledge, and would that be something that you would like to impart, in the future as well?
Oh yeah, completely. We have benefited so much from people who have taken the time to share their knowledge with us and give us advice and show us how to do stuff. And I just think there's this lovely community of people now who are all working on a similar mission around not just restoring heritage. I mean, to us, the sustainability of a product like this is really important, and it's where we all need to be going in terms of what we produce and what we buy. We need to be thinking about the footprint of that and what it's doing. So I think we all need to be working together on that and not in competition, and that's very much the spirit of the textile community that we found, that, you know, we share information. We're happy to chat to anybody, honestly. And if anybody is sort of at this workshop who wants to get in touch, wants to give me a ring, give me a phone call, email us, or come and visit, we are more than happy to share what we're doing, because the best outcome for us would be to see fields of flax all over the country, and to move away from sort of a very intensive form of agriculture to something that supports biodiversity, and to have, you know, people wearing more linen that's been grown down the road. Wouldn't that be amazing? You know, wearing your own clothes that you've made yourself. So yes, very happy. We've benefited hugely from other people's advice, and we are more than happy to share that with anybody who would like to listen.
Oh no, that's wonderful, because actually one of the questions, if I may, you know, just kind of pops in and says, you know, they've got a roughly size, you know, tennis size space. You know, would it be possible to grow flax? And when you were talking about size and space of that individual, thank you for your question. Did you also have to look at the size of your field, or look at your land and actually look at the size into conjunction what you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, yes, that's a really good point, Alice. You can grow flax anywhere. You can grow flax in a pot, if you wanted, and certainly even a small garden. The thing about it, as I mentioned earlier, is it likes poor soil, but it's also a very greedy crop. So it will draw a lot of nutrient out of the soil. So it's not a good thing to keep planting it in the same place year on year. You know, and what we have about 50 acres on our farm in total. So it works for us to be able to, you know, we can plant 2 or 3 acres every year and move it around to a different field. But we have a full crop rotation plan, and basically we don't go back to the same field within 7 years. And that's, you know, that's plenty of time for us to plant other crops that will help the soil to recover. So that is you know, one of the issues with it is you need to just manage it and not be trying to push it too hard and push the soil too hard, and manage it as part of a rotation. So by all means, you know, it's a good thing to have a go at growing it, and it's a beautiful crop to grow, but just look after your soil.
Thank you. Speaking of pushing things too hard, how's Charlie getting on? Because we're just coming to the end. It'd be lovely if we can check in with him and see how he's going. Bless him.
Charlie, can you hear us? How are you getting on?
Oh, grand.
Show us how much you've done there. Oh wow!
I've got myself enough for a ponytail, I think.
That's amazing. That's a great. You've been the great production. You've been going really well. If anybody would like a little sample of that, if we've any spinners who are watching, feel free to drop me a line and we'll send you a little sample to try out spinning. And hopefully we'll have some yarn to send out soon as well. So good job, Charlie.
It's basically 180 grams.
Okay, 180 grams. Good job.
Goodness me. Well, to everyone here, I have popped Charlie and Helen's website address, so that's mallonisland.com. So please do, you know, pop over and see them. I just have one last question. I'm afraid it is from myself, taking it way back to that first picture. Do you have a scarecrow to scare off those birds when you do your planting, or seeding, I should say, at the start?
Alice, we have many.
I couldn't resist. Charlie, I'm very sorry.
Charlie's going to patent a design for a scarecrow that he produced himself this year. So, yeah, we have quite a few around the farm. You just need to. We like the birds to have some, and they get loads at the end. You know, there'll be loads of bits left over in the field for them. But yeah, it's good if they don't take it all before it starts to take in the field. So.
Oh well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for both of you. Oh, also, sorry, Claire behind the camera. For your time this afternoon. I found it a really an interesting talk, and it's really allowed all of us to see what the hard work, the dedication, but also now being able to visually see it. I feel I understand it a lot more, and I think sharing, it's great for sharing of knowledge, but also really being able to appreciate the work, hopefully when we see it in November, just that little bit better. So I just want to say thank you, once again, and thank you to all of our attendees and all of your questions as well. It's been really great, and thank you so much, and thank you, Charlie. Hopefully you can have a nice cup of tea or something a bit
Thank
stronger
you.
now. And thank you, Helen. Thank you, Claire. And once
Thanks,
again,
Alan.
thank you, everyone. And do pop over to their website and drop, Helen a line. So once again, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you soon in November. So take care to everyone as we come to the end of the session. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
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 Bye.